very own Sacramento Assembly representative, who is also a veteran of the United States Navy, a mother of 5, the former mayor and councilperson for Lake Elsinore, and best of all, she is our Elsinore neighbor. Please welcome Melissa Melendez.
I brought my own stool. Okay, and I guess I can't stray far from this, from the amplifier here, so got me for the next 30 minutes. So everyone, I think, here knows who I am. And Dan asked me to come give a legislative update. It's kind of hard to update you on everything that's been voted on in Sacramento, but I brought, do I need this, do you think? Oh, you want me on it because I'm, okay. Okay, so I brought some highlights of what I thought y'all might be interested in, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. Whatever, is on your mind, if you have specific legislation that you've been thinking about, or we'll just talk about that, okay? You can ask me anything. If I have the answer, I'll give it to you. If you want to know inside baseball stuff, I'm happy to share that with you too. That's always entertaining. So, let's see here. AB 8. Okay, so, you know how we have the highway signs that'll tell you there's an amber alert, something like that? Well, we're now going to be able to use those signs for what's called a yellow alert. And that will notify you of hit and run accidents where someone has been hit and they've fled the scene. That will help you identify who has done that and look for those cars. We have a lot of hit and runs, and a lot of people get hit on bicycles, hit and runs, and that's oftentimes fatal. So it's not going to interfere because those signs are originally intended for letting you know about traffic. That's the point, right? So we had to say, look, we're okay with doing this type of alert, but you cannot interfere if you need to let people know that the freeway on-ramp is closed or this road is closed. You cannot interfere with that. You can't put these yellow alerts up there. So they agreed. So that one passed, and the governor signed that. I had a bill, AB 333, that has to do with AEDs, the defibrillators. So we did a bill a couple of years ago that would allow the schools to have them. There was an issue with, schools didn't want to take them because of a liability issue, which is hard to fathom, frankly. But what we learned was that about 6,000 kids a year go down from cardiac arrest, and I didn't know that. That's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
In the country or in the state?
In the country. No, it must be in the state. Yeah, because that's,
How many again?
6,000.
It's
a lot, right?
Yeah.
So, you have kids who maybe have a heart murmur or some kind of condition. You don't know it as a parent, and the next thing you know, they're at football practice or they're at recess. By the time an ambulance gets there, you got a problem, right? So we did the bill to allow schools to accept those AEDs. They wouldn't let me mandate it. I don't know why we have them in every government building. Apparently it's the law that you have to be able to save my life, but not the kids. I don't understand that. But so I did another bill that would allow teachers to get certified on this piece of equipment, and they can get continuing education points. Because teachers have to, they have to do continuing education. This would count as that, and also a little bit of an incentive for them to get trained to know how to use it. And it's very simple. I did they right across had a table set up in the Capitol, and they had one of these defibrillators, and it talks to you. I mean, it's so simple. My 9-year-old could do it. It's got 4 pictures. You can't mess it up. It won't give someone a shock unless it senses that they need it. So there's no fear of you're going to send electrodes through someone and do more harm. It won't do that. So we gave them some continuing education credits in the hopes that we would have more teachers who are qualified to use it. Firearms transfer. I had a bill that. So right now, if someone files a gun violence restraining order against you, let's say you have an ex-boyfriend, and he recently became an ex-boyfriend, and it didn't so well, and he wants to get back at you, or ex-wife or ex-girlfriend, whatever. They could call and say, you know what, he's got guns in his home, and he's acting a little crazy, and I think you should come take his weapon. Even though none of that happened. I could do that just to be spiteful, right? So when you're going through the process of clearing your good name, that no, that didn't happen, law enforcement will come confiscate your weapons. And then you have to go through a big rigmarole of trying to get them back. So the bill I did, which was signed, by the way, I had to check to make sure you never know with Governor Brown. It would allow you, if this happens and you're working on getting your good name cleared, you can take your guns to a firearms dealer, a gun shop, right? They can hold them for you. And then when the courts say you did nothing of the kind, you don't need to have your weapons taken, you can very easily go get your weapons back. If you have been arrested or you have further charges, you cannot just go get your weapons back. But this makes it a little easier for people. I just think I understand with shootings that we've had, and people are very sensitive to gun violence and the events that have taken place, but I also don't think that law-abiding citizens who get caught up sometimes in some of these issues should be punished for that. So that's good news. That was signed. Let's see, what else do we have here? Those are the good ones. I have a whole list of bad ones. Sorry. Let's see here.
My fingers are sticky, I apologize.
Okay, we had one here that was signed by the governor. This is not so great. If you have a grocery store that's, let's say, I don't know, you have a Stater Brothers and Aldi's, which is one of the new markets that's coming to town, buys it. This law says that you, the store owner, you have to retain all of the employees from the previous store, which means you have to allow them to also unionize. So maybe you're not a union shop. So it kind of ties a hand in employers. What if, maybe you don't want all of those employees, maybe some of them aren't so great. Maybe most of them are great and you would want to hire them on, but this ties the hands of business owners to say you must keep everyone in that store. Maybe the reason why the store tanked is because of the employees, so that option has been taken out of the hands of these employers. So that is not a good bill. Charter schools, this one is still on the governor's desk, so with any hope he will veto it. This is, we want choice as parents, right, for schools, whether you're sending them to public school, charter school, home school, private school, whatever, as parents, it's your choice. This bill says that charter schools cannot be run by or, what's the exact, operated as or for a for-profit organization. That's going to cut out a lot of charter schools. That's basically, kind of cutting them off at the knees, which is unfortunate because sometimes public schools don't work for all kids. Sometimes homeschooling obviously doesn't work for everybody, and we want these kids to graduate. That one I'm hoping the governor vetoes because we want the parents to have a choice. SB 277, which was the mandatory vaccine bill, that was a big one this year. I think I got the most email about that bill. The governor did pass that one, so it is mandatory now that all school-age children get a whole list of vaccinations before they can go to school. I did not vote for that bill, though all my kids are vaccinated, all 5 of them, and I never had any problems with any vaccinations, but one of the vaccines that these kids have to get at the age of 5 or 4 is for a sexually transmitted disease. I don't know why a 5-year-old would have to get a vaccine for a sexually transmitted disease. It didn't make any sense to me. But the governor signed it, so that is law now. All your kids must have it. They had another bill that wanted to require all those who work in schools to also have all of the vaccinations. I don't know if the governor signed that one yet. He has 2 more days to sign bills. But I'm not really sure how you take grown adults who may have some existing health issues. Now as we get a little older, we start to have, a few more things start falling apart and we're taking other medicines that may interfere with some of these vaccinations. I don't know how you mandate that these adults get these shots, but he may do that. SB 350 was the bill that would require us to reduce 2 things. Reduce your electricity consumption by 50% in the next 15 years. Barbara's eyes are going, whoa. 50%. Reduce your electricity consumption by 50%. Also reduce your fuel consumption, your gasoline consumption in your car by 50%. Okay, so the good news, I know, and it's ridiculous. what they come up with up there. This was a bill brought forward by an LA legislator who, to my knowledge, doesn't drive himself anywhere. So, the good news is we got the fuel consumption part taken out of that bill, so there is no mandate to reduce gasoline consumption by 15% as of right now. They're going to try again. The bad news is they did get there's two parts to the bad news actually. The electricity consumption by 50%, that did get signed into law. So you can expect your energy bills to increase more than they already are. The second part of the bad news is Governor Brown was furious that we took the part out about the gasoline consumption, and he said very clearly in his press conference that he was going to give the Public Utilities Commission and the California Air Resources Board the authority to impose those rules on us anyway. So what does that look like? I mean, I don't know how I reduce my gasoline consumption by 50% short of driving 50% less, and I can't do that. So what does that mean? Rationing? Does that mean we go back to the days of, if your license plate ends in an odd number, you can go on these days to fill up, and that? I don't know how they plan to do that. They think everybody's going to buy electric vehicles, but right, exactly. But they're not. And what about, this is truckers, this is how we get our food, this is how we get all of our goods. Everything travels by truck, even if it comes here by a ship or a boat. Once it gets here, it is going to travel by truck. So I don't know what they're thinking, to be honest. I wish I could shed some light on that. But they have vowed to impose that anyway. So I am full of good news tonight, so moving right along. Vaccines, clean energy. Okay, that's kind of the good, bad, and the ugly. I really kind of wanted to make this more of an interactive thing. I don't want to sit up here and lecture or give a speech. So I'm wondering, do you all have any questions, any specific concerns in the back? Yes?
Well, the question of if we're going to become a mandate to reduce our fuel, oil, and our electric, those are like opposite, So it's like, if I reduce my oil, I need to buy an electric car, but then you need to reduce my electric for the electric car.
I didn't say it would make sense.
I just wanted to make sure I understood the...
You did. Yeah, I know. This is what happens when, the LA-based legislators and the Bay Area-based legislators, they're kind of running the show in the state. And that's where you get these types of laws, because in the San Francisco area, they are all about green energy, and they are all about walking places and taking public transit. And if we had BART, we would probably do the same, but we don't. We have to drive. And so they don't take into consideration the people in the Central Valley, the people down here in Southern California who don't have the luxury. We have a train we can take into LA, yes. Once you get into LA, then what do you do? What do you do? Thank goodness we have Uber and Lyft and things like that now, but that's still a cost that some people can't bear. Dan?
Myself, I'm a political junkie. I don't want to be in politics, but I'm enamored with people who do it.
We're dumb enough to get into it, yeah.
Can you give us just a rough idea of what is it like in the day of a life of an assembly person? How do you have 5 kids?
Drinking, no, just kidding.
How do you have 5 kids and still have a job that's based in Sacramento?
Right. So for me, we are in session technically from Monday through Thursday. We have floor session on Monday mornings, and we have floor session, Monday afternoon, technically it starts around noon. And then we have session Thursday mornings. In between that time, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and Monday and Thursday as well, we have committee hearings and various things. For me, what I do, because it's only an hour flight, I will come back home, usually on a Tuesday, stay work in the district Tuesday, part of Wednesday, and then I'll fly back up so that I can be there for a session on Thursday. Because the only thing we have on Thursdays is floor session where we're voting on bills. And then, you're done. So some other people aren't as lucky because some people don't have an airport that would make any sense for them to fly out of. So their legislators are driving 3 hours because they have to. No, thank you. I'm very thankful for my 1-hour flight. It's a great nap. So I welcome it every week. As far as the day in the life of the legislator, that varies. It depends on if you have committee hearings. When the vaccine bill was, going through all the committees, and I think it was 6 committees that thing had to go through. the Capitol was bursting at the seams with people, from mostly the people who were against. I mean, they turned out in droves, and they were everywhere. It was amazing. They were, protesting out in front of the Capitol, on the side of the Capitol, in the legislators' offices. It was pretty crazy. And committee hearings really aren't that exciting, to be honest with you. Most bills aren't that, they're not newsworthy, but some are, especially because for me, I'm on the Public Safety Committee, so everything that has to do with gun control, everything that has to do with sentencing, all of that stuff comes through my committee, and I'm the vice chair of that committee, so it can get a little heated sometimes because that committee is very divided with respect to, we have the majority of folks on the committee who are for more gun control, who are for less, lower prison sentences, less incarceration, and then we have the members who are a little more, well, the opposite. I don't know how to say that nicely. So it can be a battle, for sure. I always call it the Criminal Safety Committee because I feel like that's all we do is we protect criminals, and we very rarely kind of look out for the innocent people in California, but that's the makeup of the committee. I don't know, Dan, it's really not that exciting. I wish I should, I don't know, come up with something better, but it's not that exciting. It's work. I mean, it's a job, and sometimes, like when we were doing the budget, I was there for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And right next to me in the hallway was the hearing where they were hearing the vaccine bill. And so I'm sitting in my, boring budget hearing, nobody cares about that until after you pass it. And I can hear in the hallway people shouting, and I mean, it was getting crazy over there for the vaccine bill. So sometimes it's, you wish you were in the other room. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Your comments about the protesters there, what kind of influence, it's just two questions I want to ask. Does that influence you to have these people come and protest or not? I mean,
Well, so here's what I'm concerned with. I'm concerned with the people in my district, because that's where I represent. I don't represent all of California. I don't. I represent the 67th Assembly District. That's where my loyalty lies, so I have to listen to the people in my district. And overwhelmingly, the people in this district said they did not want mandatory vaccines. Though most believed in the vaccines, they didn't want it to be mandatory. They certainly didn't want some of those on that list to be included in the mandatory vaccine part.
so they let you know then?
Oh, absolutely. I get emails, all
But you
the time.
don't know how many of them out there are your constituents?
Right. Most of them, there are a lot of rent-a-mobs up in Sacramento, a lot of them, who, it just varies what the issue is, but people show up. A lot of times they have kids with them, which is fascinating to me because I always wonder, aren't you supposed to be in school? But, maybe it's, I don't know.
And the second question is regarding the bullet train. Is that still on this calendar?
Yes, because what happened was Governor Brown decided he was going to use cap and trade money and somehow tie that to the bullet train and fund it that way. They're still moving forward, it hasn't been stopped. I would prefer they put it back on the ballot and let voters decide, because voters approved it, right, in the beginning, and that's fine, but it was a particular cost to them, $33 billion, I think. Now it's, I think, 3 times that. And I think voters, since taxpayers are going to be the ones who have to pay for it, I think we ought to have a say in, do we still want to go through with this project? We have a right to change our minds, but they won't put it back on the ballot. So
it's still on.
It is, it's still on there. And there's a lot of money being spent on environmental studies, and there's going to be some eminent domain issues where they're taking property from private property owners in order to do this. So I don't know. I would be surprised if it ever gets built, to be honest, but stranger things have happened. Donna?
Who appoints you choose the committees?
The speaker, so the way it works is our Assembly Republican leader says, here's who I want on each of these committees. Then our leader has to get that cleared through the speaker of the entire Assembly. And then the speaker decides who can go where. And there have been times where the speaker is in the majority party, right? The speaker has said, no, I don't want this person on that committee. That has happened. The speaker has the ultimate authority.
I was wondering if it could be a load of one side and the other.
Every committee is one side or the other. Every committee. There's always, because Democrats are the majority party, so every committee has, at least one more member, so that they have a majority than Republicans. Every committee. But sometimes, I will say, there are times when we stop bills in partnership with our Democrat colleagues. It doesn't happen a lot, but it happens often enough where it's just a bill that makes several people uncomfortable. And, we aren't afraid to stick together and say, you know what, we can't let this one through. So, I think Chris?
I got a call from a lady yesterday that said that they're teaching Islam in one of the schools here in Elsinore. And she's very violent about the whole thing, and they've gone to the newspaper, but the newspaper hasn't done anything about it yet. I just wonder if you've heard anything about that. It's in one of the grammar schools here.
I saw something about that, but I don't know what school it was. I didn't see it in the press. I saw it on social media. I didn't look closely on it to see what school it was. But I did see somebody where the concern was that if they're going to teach the pillars of Islam, that they should be also teaching, Christianity and every other religion. But I didn't see enough of it to know what's going on.
It's over on the between Albert Hill and the shopping center there, that school there. I can't think of the name of it right now. I can't think of anybody's name. I can't even think of your name right now. But I was just wondering if that is something that is, kids happen to be my first priority. I think they're above everything and everybody else. And this kind of worried me because, to me, I think that a public school should not do that.
You mean as far as teaching any particular religion?
My kids went to Catholic school, I went to Catholic school, that's what we were taught. But this is a public school, and I don't think that should be put into a public school.
And that's something that's a feeling that is shared by a lot of people, but that's something that you need to talk to your school board about, because they have control. Your school superintendent, they're the ones who are deciding what goes into the curriculum. So if that is going on, that's your first stop, is the school board. And if you don't get satisfaction there, then maybe you have to go a little higher and talk to the school superintendent to find out what's going on.
I'll tell her because she's really concerned about it.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Really, they need to go to a school board meeting and say or talk to the teacher directly. That's really probably the fastest way to do it, is to find out what's really going on. Okay, so now.
Question, you mentioned earlier that you represent your district and you get emails and things. You have staff that keeps track of who's for and against certain issues, and do you keep a tally of that as you're working towards passing a bill and voting on it?
So if a bill is coming up and we're getting emails in now, I'm for this, I'm against this, we absolutely keep track of that. And I get all of the emails. So every email that comes into my office, my staff prints it out for me, and they give it to me once a week, every Friday. Denny in the back there, my faithful servant in the back there, Denny Warren, she brings a bag to my doorstep every Friday. Sometimes it's bigger than others, and I answer all the emails that I get, every single one. Sometimes it takes me a little longer because maybe there are many of them, but I answer them. But we do keep track so that we know, people for or against. Sometimes it's only a few people who write in, but sometimes it's a hot button issue and it's a lot.
Is it only emails they track, or is it phone calls?
Oh, no,
letters?
all that. Phone calls, emails. We don't get a lot of letters, but we do occasionally. It's always nice when I get a handwritten letter. Phone calls, of course, that's very easy to track. And then we put that all into our database so that when it comes time to vote, we know, okay, here's kind of the pulse of the district. Yes, sir.
You talked about in the letter that on the budget that water projects were not looked at.
Yep.
What particular was not looked at and was not funded?
Well, what we want to do is we want to fund more storage, and that's why voters passed those water bonds, right? And some of that money was supposed to go for water storage because we can't make it rain, but we can do something like saving the water that we get when it does rain. And that would help us, but they have yet to spend any money on storage, and that's honestly, that's our biggest problem. It's not, we can withstand some dry spells if we've saved the water, but right now, we've got water being shot out to the ocean because we have some ecological issues where we're trying to save a particular species of fish. That's not helpful. And then we don't have enough places to store this water. When it does come down in buckets, we need to be able to store it.
Right, I understand that, but what, did they present projects?
Oh,
'Cause you
we
said
had
it might-
the Temperance Flat project where that would be a reservoir. We wanted money to be put in that. We want another reservoir, at least a few more reservoirs built down here. We can't get it done. We can't get them to release the money, which is a problem. And the governor wants to build twin tunnels. And that's not going so well because in the north, they're very much opposed to those tunnels where he wants to divert water, from the dump, and it has to do with the salinity. It's, nothing that you all want to hear about right now, but the northerners are very much opposed to these tunnels. So it seems like every solution people come up with, somebody is against it and puts up a roadblock. And typically it's the environmental groups who oftentimes are battling one another, which is very strange, but that's what happens. Dan?
We've had term limits now in Sacramento for what, a decade or?
It just changed. When I got elected in 2012 is when it changed to 12-year term limits for state legislators. It was 6 years before that.
Well, my concern as a voter is, does that drive a lot of junior varsity legislators who just don't know what they're doing? I mean, if you had a magic wand, would California be better served without term limits so we have people who actually know what they're doing and they're not still learning on the job?
Right. Well, I think that probably happened more often when they have the 6-year term limits. I don't think as much with 12-year term limits. I think 12 years is a lot of time to get things done. If you're brand new and green and have never served in any type of public servant capacity, maybe it'll take you a little longer, maybe not. I think 6 years was definitely too short in hindsight looking at it. I've always been a fan of term limits. I think 12 years will balance it out, where it's not this constant revolving door. Because what happens is you have to work with everybody. And if you know that person is leaving in 2 years, what incentive do you have to work with him? Because he's going to be gone in 2 years. You'll just wait for the next person who replaces him. And it goes like that. So now with 12 years, my class that came in, I think we had nearly 40 of us, 38. That's half the assembly. There's only 80 members of the assembly. And so we're kind of cycling through all the people who were on that 6-year term limit. So now you're stuck with one another, right? Like being married. And you gotta learn how to get along. So I think overall, that should help California, I hope, anyway. Because you may not need me now, but you might need me later and vice versa. And I think people recognize that. So, yes, sir.
One of the things that really bothers me is that it's really obvious that we're living in very divided government times in the state and in the federal government. And, everybody's choosing up sides, ideological and oftentimes not really logical.
Right.
And our infrastructure's falling apart. We got many problems. And it seems to a lot of us voter folks that things aren't really happening with government. We're just, one side wants to do everything, the other side don't want to do nothing.
Right.
And
No, I think you're right. I think it's very polarized. I think this country, not just the state, but more so the country, is more divided probably than it has ever been on a lot of different issues. With the state of California, I mean, it is a one-party state, I will be honest with you. So, the state has been run predominantly by the Democrat Party for quite some time now. And there are certain things they will do and certain things they won't do. And that's, I can want it as much as I want, but if I don't have the support, I can't get it done. So there were a couple different tax increases that they wanted to put through this year, which thankfully we were able to stop. Because I don't think there's any appetite right now for raising taxes. I mean, there are some in the population who feel they're okay with that. But I think right now no one really has the stomach for it. But when you talk about transportation, we do. I mean, our roads are falling apart, right? And they stopped funding transportation for many, many years, and now we're paying for it.
Yeah.
So the problem is it's more expensive to fix what you have neglected.
Yeah.
So now the question becomes, okay, how do we pay for it? And we have transportation subcommittee that has been formed, and I am on that committee. I don't know if that's punishment or reward, I'm not really sure, but regardless, I'm on it. And we're gonna have the conversation about how do we fund these improvements. And I will tell you that one of the first solutions they're gonna bring is some sort of tax increase in some form. And the question is, will Californians say we're okay with that? I don't know. I mean, by show of hands in here, if it meant, fixing the roads and the bridges and the highways and all that, would you be okay with some kind of tax increase?
No.
It would definitely depend on the roads. You drive Newport, and they have beautiful roads in Orange County, and they stop at the border. So that county's been well represented, completely represented. Ortega stops at the line, and our roads are just nasty.
Right, so
Don't they take the funds? You seem like you pay taxes, you pay to fix the roads, and this and that, and then when they go to use the funds, they're not there.
Isn't that weird? I know, it's like socks in the dryer, they just disappear, right? Yeah, I know, that's what they've been doing, they've not been using the money to put into the infrastructure as they should be.
Voted to use the funds for.
And that's why people are so hesitant and tentative about voting for any tax increase, because they're rightly fearful that the money won't be spent the way it's supposed to. So the way to ensure that is to make sure that it is very specific in the bill that it can only be spent on these things, and that is continuously appropriated, meaning if you want to fund infrastructure, you want to make sure money's going toward that every year, that they can't, 3 years down the road say, we think we've got enough money for transportation. Now we're going to divert funds for a little while and pay for something else. That has to be written in there that they can't do that, and that's what happens. So I understand the hesitation. I think you had your...
My question was really based exactly the same. I keep hearing that fund has been raided for other purposes. Why can't we get that safeguard built in?
Well, we could if people would vote yes for it in the legislature.
Yeah.
Okay?
Has a bill been proposed and shot
Oh,
down?
many bills have been proposed, yeah. Yeah, and they've been shot down. But so we're going to run this drill again to talk about transportation infrastructure funding. Now some inside baseball stuff. You might have to edit this out again.
Okay.
So we have the speaker right now in the Assembly, which is Tony Atkins. She is challenging a fellow Democrat on the Senate side for his seat. Okay, they are not happy about that. The Senate is very angry about that. So what I've been told is that anything she tries to get done this next year, because she terms out in 2016, anything she tries to get done, and this transportation thing was her idea, they're not going to let happen. That's politics, right?
I have an interesting question as an independent liberal. The liberals, the Wall Street Journal, or not the Wall Street Journal, but in the New York Times and the Washington Post made a big deal about comparing California, high taxes, supposedly business unfriendly, to Kansas, super hyper friendly, where they're dropping all the taxes to attract businesses, and they're saying that Kansas is running these huge deficits and it's not really the experiment that worked out like they hoped. And so liberals saying, well, California is doing fine with their high taxes and Kansas is not. Is that something that is talked about outside of liberal newspapers?
I don't know. I've not seen that comparison that you're talking about. Maybe you could email it to me or something.
Sure.
In California, depends on how you look at the numbers, because one group will say we have a surplus. And it's convenient to say we have a surplus that day because that means they want to spend more money in other areas. And then the next week, it's suddenly we have a deficit because they don't want to spend money on. So it really depends on how you look at it. I will tell you that California, the schools are doing very poorly. The unemployment rate is, I think there are only 5 other states that have higher unemployment than we do. And I think in that number that they calculated, they haven't counted the people who just said, I'm done, I'm not looking for work anymore. So it's high. So we have a high unemployment rate. We have a big state. We have a lot of opportunity, but the jobs aren't here. When you raise the taxes and that's not just sales tax. I mean, I'm talking about all the other fees and taxes that are associated with doing business. People leave, or they just close down the business and they go try to work for someone else. So there's less opportunity. I mean, my son, who was working at Jersey Mike's, I mean, he's making sandwiches. How hard can it be, right? He's going to be paid, the minimum wage is going to go up to $12 an hour in the next year. Why are we paying? Like, he's 16, right? But we mandate that on the employers. Our minimum wage is higher than the federal minimum wage, so nobody in California is making less than the minimum wage because ours is already higher. But we keep raising it. The problem is, it's just more costly for employers. We don't have that many people making minimum wage. Excuse me, I didn't take my allergy medicine.
I just want to interject, Melissa said she could speak for about 30 minutes, and she actually had another appointment. And I know we want to talk to anybody who wants to be on the board next year, and so we'll talk a little bit of business after. So if you want to take 1 or 2 more questions, and then we'll let you go.
Okay, is there any other comments, questions that anybody might have? Question, and looking at
I just had one about the highway. Can I ask you about that?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Pardon me?
I didn't hear you. What did you say?
I want to ask you about 74.
Okay.
Years ago, the city of Lake Elsinore fought to get 74 from Ortega Highway to Collier. And now it has been expanded, and you have got it passed.
Right.
That it goes from Ortega to Paris.
Right.
Now, when they were talking about it being expanded years ago from Ortega to Collier, they wanted the city, tried to get the state to widen and pave that part from, well, I guess the Ortega down to Collier. Mm-hmm. Now, is that in that contract now that you just have passed? No. Okay.
No. It doesn't include that portion of the 74. This is the portion in between like Central and Paris. The county specifically asked me to do this. They didn't ask for that portion that you're talking about. They might in the future, but they didn't ask for that part.
What part's that?
You're talking about going from the Ortega?
From your
Grand Avenue.
From Grand Avenue, I mean, I meant to say Grand Avenue.
Right.
And then all the way up to Collier is what the city wanted, but they wanted the state to widen it all that way. And I just wonder if that's in that new situation at all.
Well, it'll be, what the bill does is it gives control of that portion of the highway to the county. So it's no longer under state control. What the county chooses to do with it, once they have it, is up to them.
Okay, so it is the county now.
So they want to widen it, they still have to negotiate the price. But the nice part is that portion of Highway 74 is actually in good shape and in good repair, as opposed to other portions of the 74.
There is portions there from like Lake Shore to Collier that.
Well, but I mean, in comparison to other portions of the 74, it's in better repair, so there's less money that would have to go into it. So I think the negotiating part should be fairly simple. Once the county gets it, like you said, that's up to them to do with it what they want.
So it's under the county's jurisdiction now?
Yeah, the bill was signed today.
Okay, but it was working years ago that the city would take it, it would be the city that would take it, but now it's the county that has taken it over, right?
74 in Lake Elsinore is now county?
No, the portion in between.
She's asking like in front of Lakeside.
Oh, no.
This is the 6
not that
miles between the city of Paris and the city of Lake Elsinore on 74.
Yeah, what I'm talking about is the 74 down by where Costco and all that is. that portion of the 74 heading toward Paris, is it 6? Yeah,
6 miles.
Yeah. That's the portion that the county asked for, which is the portion that I did the bill on that is now under the
So it
county.
doesn't take in from the Lake, Grand Avenue to, that's still the state?
They didn't ask for that.
So it's up to the county to ask the state.
Right, because I'm not going to come in and say, hey, I want the county to have control of this. The county may say, thanks a lot, Melissa, but we can't afford it. So I take my cues from them.
So in our city, it still belongs to the
State.
the state?
Yes.
From the Grand Avenue
Yes.
to Collier, it still belongs to the state?
A portion of that is the city's, but I think from the Ortega,
Is that, let's put out the Ortega. We're going to start from Grand Avenue and Riverside.
I tell you what, how about we, after the meeting, because I think half the people here aren't interested in it, we'll figure out, we can show you on a map which portions are state and which portions are state, because it is a mix, since it kind of weaves through. Yes, sir.
Why does the county want part of it back because the state wouldn't pay for improving it?
Because it's, for development purposes, it's better that it's under local control, and then they can do with it what they want, whether they want to, how they zone it, the improvements they make, because the state isn't obviously going to come in and widen that road, but the county can, which is good in that area. Elizabeth?
I just have a quick question about that euthanasia bill that Governor Brown signed.
Yes.
Now, is that going to become effective next
Yes, ma'am.
year
Yes, ma'am.
and automatically before
Yes.
anyone has any say on it?
Well, there is a group, I believe, who said they were going to try to do a ballot initiative to stop it. But I will tell you that there was a Public Policy Institute poll done, and that is a nonpartisan organization. And they did polling and found that over 60% of Californians were in favor of that bill. So if they put it on the ballot, I don't know that it would be defeated. But there is a group that doesn't want it to be law, but that bill was signed and it will go into law, and it will go into effect unless they do a voter repeal of it. So I think that was the last question. So thank you and for having me, Dan, and inviting me. And you all can, you contact my office anytime, and I do answer my emails. But you can call, email, carry pigeon, smoke signal, whatever you want to do. I will answer. And if we can help, of course, in any way, let me know. And also, we have bags. I brought bags for you in the back, the reusable bags. Those were not purchased with taxpayer money, just so you know. But you are welcome to grab one or two on your way out. So when you go to the market, you can, we went to, where were we, in Hawaii? One time where we were at a market and they had no bags, right? Wasn't that a Target? They had no bags. You had to bring your own. Yeah, you had to bring your own. They are full stuff here. What am I supposed to do? Yeah, no bags. So, we're not at that point yet. But anyway, thank you everyone for having me.
So Melissa, as you can see, is the most available, friendliest legislator you could ask for. Her representative Denny is in the back, so if you do have important questions to be followed up on, please see Denny, or I should say send her an email. So one more round of applause. That concludes our speakers' time. If you are interested in serving on the board in a volunteer position, please stay and talk to us and introduce yourself. Otherwise, we'll see you next year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sort of.
Great, thanks a lot.